All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Discovering Multifamily podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Scandariato with Red Knight Properties. And today we have a special guest with us, Kenny Harper, who's a speaker, renowned author, and marketing advisor. And, he's an entrepreneur as well. He's co-authored a few books, Amplify Your Business, Business Breakthrough. And he's the co-owner of Rock My Image, which is an authority marketing agency. And he's a professional speaker. So today we're going to talk about, business growth, self-improvement, and, he specifically what we're going to talk about is kind of how to, his one book he co-authored, Business Breakthrough. It's called How to Find $10,000 in Any Business in 45 Minutes. We're going to talk about that book and how we can, relate it to the real estate industry. So Kenny, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, Anthony. It is a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be sharing some ideas that could help spark some interest and some fire under people who are thinking about investing in real estate.
Sure, Kenny. Awesome. So why don't you talk to us about that book and what it's all about, and what kind of message are you trying to get across?
So here's the thing. You ever heard of that concept, the Pareto Principle or the 80-20 rule?
Yep.
So typically, the statement says you get 80% of the results from 20% of the actions that you take. Now, in a business world, when I'm connecting with business owners, we're going to be looking at 5 profit drivers in their business. But for listeners who may be saying, well, I don't own a business. I'm really looking to build wealth for myself or for my family. You're still wanting to look at what are the actions that you could take in your life that are going to be the most impactful to helping build your wealth. And part of that is, thinking about where you're investing your money. Are you trying to save your way to wealth? That's not a winning strategy. It's better to invest in something that is going to be able to grow and build wealth for you. And that's the whole concept behind the book. We're looking at what are the actions you could take to proactively increase the revenue and profitability that comes into a business. Again, when we're talking with business owners, there's 5 profit drivers. It's if someone's looking to grow and get more customers, they want to be looking at lead generation and how many leads they turn into customers. If someone's looking to extend the lifetime value of a current customer, they're going to be looking at the number of transactions or the average dollar per transaction. And then it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you get to keep. So that's another area that would relate to outside of the business world, because regardless of what you do for a living, whether you own a business or you have a career or you're investing, you need to be thinking about how you're setting yourself up to save more than money that you make. And so part of it in this conversation would be investing into properties that could help build wealth, but then working with an accountant or a tax strategist to make sure that you're saving as much money as you possibly can and not paying more than your fair share. So that's the general principle, is being able to put the focus there. So a lot of times we can get caught up in just living the day-to-day, and we don't take the step back to focus on what's most important.
Makes a lot of sense. So when you kind of talk about the 80-20 rule a little bit, what are you seeing a lot of business owners? Do you see a lot of people not following the 80-20 rule, like when they're just starting out, or do you see it when the business, let's say the business is 30 years old and they're pretty established? Do you still see them following that rule or not?
Oh, it is rampant. 80% of people are not paying attention to this formula. That's it. It's that pervasive that people are just not paying attention to the key areas in their business or in their wealth that would give them the most impact. And it's not for anything else than it's a busy world. We have so many different distractions pulling us in all different directions, whether it's social media, pinging us on our phones, or the latest news thing saying we got to pay attention, or pandemics. There's always something striving for attention. We have busy lives, we have families, we have jobs, we have deadlines. nonstop. Bam, 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 bam. Things just pushing and calling us to be reactive. Now, and
Right.
Stephen Covey is the author of the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Great book.
And one of the habits he talks about in there is be proactive. And taking a step back to really look at, are you being reactionary to the things that are happening in your life? Are you being reactionary in addressing urgent but non-important matters, or just urgent matters in general? Or are you being more effective to plan ahead so that you could be working on matters that are important but not urgent? And there's a quadrant in that book that's pretty powerful. The 4 quadrants of, is it important, unimportant, urgent, or not urgent? And again, you want to put your time in the things that are important, but they're not urgent. And you could do a quick exercise that could be helpful for you is if you take a piece of paper and a pen, go old school, and just for a day, just jot down your time to see what you're doing on a regular basis. Most people would be surprised to find they put a lot of their time in things that are urgent, but maybe not important. Or some of those things may be important, but it would have been better if they would have planned ahead and not got them into an urgent status. So to answer your original question, how we got here, business owners typically aren't looking at those profit drivers, the 20% that's going to be the biggest impact, regardless of they're just starting out entrepreneurs or if they've been in business for 5, 10 years, 30 years. In many cases, they can have managers, department leads, they can have a marketing department, sales department, operations. And a lot of the times people get bottlenecked in tunnel vision after a while because we just start getting very tunnel visioned into the patterns that we create. We're creatures of habit, right? And before you know it, we're not getting a better sense of where are our blind sides? What are we not paying attention to? And so as a growth coach, I typically help provide fresh perspective and help them assess, here's some things that maybe you know, but you're not addressing, or maybe you don't know, and now it's a new opportunity. And so for listeners who are thinking about, investing in thinking about how they're going to build their wealth, taking the step back and really making sure that they're looking at, are they putting their time and energy into the things that are going to help them build the wealth, or are they letting urgent matters prevent them from taking action? So that's one side of the boat. It's being too busy to do something. I'll get to it, right? How many times do you hear people, I'll get to that later?
Yeah, I'm guilty of it too.
And we're all guilty of it. So that's one side of the coin that can prevent people from taking the actions they need that can help them make a better life for themselves, for their family, and for generations to come. Now, the other big, pervasive, insidious thing is fear. A lot of times people want fear. They don't want fear. A lot of times people want to avoid doing things because of fear. And that's pretty common knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Now, this can especially come into play when someone's looking to invest a decent sum of money into something. They think, how do I know this is going to work? Do I have any guarantees? Are there any other things I could do that are more certain? How do I know when the time is right? When will I be ready? All these sorts of questions, very pervasive, but it's important to take a gut check and say, what is driving your boat? What is driving your actions? Is it fear or is it faith? And you don't want to let fear steer your boat. So that's the other side of the coin when we're looking at what is preventing people from achieving the higher levels of success, whether in their personal wealth or in their business wealth. It goes down to those things. The uncertainty, the fear, the wanting the security. So that's really what would be helpful, is for people to take this step back and say, what is driving my decision here? I have two boys. Little Kenny, he is 8, and little Michael is 5, and we're all into Marvel right now. Do you know much about the Marvel movies?
I used to, yep.
Okay,
Not the
so
new ones.
well, there's one that's pretty cool. It's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's actually a cartoon, and it's produced really well. But in there, they're into a different dimension, and there's this little Spider-Man who's finding his way, becoming a Spider-Man, and he comes to a point in the movie. It's a climactic scene where he's on the ledge of a building, and he's thinking, how do I know when I'm ready? How do I know I could be Spider-Man? And his mentor, the original Spider-Man, says, you won't. It takes a leap of faith. And so I just wanted to share those two things that really stop a lot of people from achieving their greatness. It all comes down to the mind and getting in the right mindset to really achieve the things that you want, whether it's in business or in your personal life, your finances. Just getting that mental mindset and that fortitude to take the right actions when you're being proactive, you're being focused, and you're working with a trusted advisor like yourself, Anthony. That's how you're going to be set up for success.
Sure. So how do they? We talked about a lot of different ideas and theories and some practices. What's your number one? And you mentioned the book, 7 Habits, the quadrant. I think that's great. I think, even having that next to your desk and always referring back to it. Are there any other tools you would recommend for whether entrepreneurs, investors, even employees, to kind of always go back to and not get distracted? Because there's so many distractions out there, to just not be distracted with what their ultimate goals are. Because I feel like with the distractions, a lot of those distractions spring out fear,
right,
as well. So for example, with real estate, people see what's happened with the stock market. Stock market's at an all-time high, or not an all-time high, but close to it again. Before, back in March, when it dipped that significant of a level, that was a distraction from people seeing the bigger picture.
Right.
So although it was chaos, it was, how do people overcome that? Wow, I just lost 30% of my wealth in one day like that, and then there's more distractions, bad news every day. How do people get over that hump because you're constantly bombarded? Are there any strategies that you use? I think that quadrant's great. I might even print it out and put it up next to my desk just to make sure I'm not distracted, because I'm guilty of it myself.
It's easy. We're all guilty of different things. We're humans. We can't be perfect. I'm a positive person. I like helping people get inspired, empowered to achieve different levels of success. I try to keep a headstrong, positive outlook. Now, what we experienced in the year 2020 in the first quarter really was different. It was different. We saw pandemic, which was fearful in and of itself, not knowing what the death rate was going to be, having family members of different ages. I've got children, I have parents, none of which I want them to be harmed. Myself, so that was scary. And we had the stock market and the businesses were all shuffling around, people closing doors, kids having to be homeschooled, all these different things putting a lot of fear in the air. And then I think everyone kind of wants to be informed, but when you're watching the news, you're getting a lot of the fear kind of programmed into you, because they don't make it always just factual. There's a lot of underlying things. So paying attention to what you're tuning into and what you're consuming. Again, when the pandemic came out, I was sharing a lot of, here's all this news, here's all this hype. And what I felt in that particular time frame, I felt like, you've ever heard of that Chinese water torture, the drip torture? I felt like I was kind of getting whittled away with all that kind of negative focus. And I was getting stressed out.
Yep.
And I realized that it was not so much what reality was, it was what I was feeding my mind with. So I remember a weekend after kind of like getting stressed out and feeling the energy in my body of stress and fear. I just went on a bike ride with the weekend with my boys and we just had fun. And when I was out there on my bike with my boys, it's like there was nothing was a problem. It was all what was being created in my mind due to what I was consuming. So I said, I need to make sure that I'm guarding what I'm consuming from a mental standpoint. And I picked up another book that I thought was really great. It's called Mind Hacking. Mind Hacking by Sir John Hargrave. Now, I think you can go to mindhacky.ng. I think that's the URL. You can get a free download of the book. And he also has a complimentary 21-day mind hacking challenge. And the exercise is all about how you can really take the time to let your mind become still, make sure that you're focused on what's important to you, and making sure that you're in control of where you want to go with your mind and with your actions. And so I managed to, I guess it was just the law of attraction, right? Attracting this resource into my life when I kind of needed it because I was feeling that stress. And after unplugging and just getting grounded again, I'm like headstrong and rocking and rolling again. So that would be a recommendation for people who are kind of getting in that spot where like, where's my career going? What about my industry? What about this investment? What about this market going down? Taking the time to make sure that you have some sort of ritual or regimen that you follow on a regular basis that is fueling your mind with things that are empowering you and strengthening your fortitude and your mental mindset. If you consume too much news and you're talking with people about all of these challenges, you're going to create more power to that negativity and it can affect your judgment and your energy.
Sure. Mind hacking. I'll definitely have to pick up that one. What would you leave our listeners with today? Like how if there's one just quick piece of advice to get everybody back in kind of the pre-COVID mindset. I think for the most part, everybody was very, very happy. How do we get back to that state very, very quickly? Is it those rituals that you mentioned? Maybe.
Here's a little exercise. One of the first books I wrote was Amplify Your Business, the Rockstar Professional's Guide to Marketing Success. I believe that everyone has something inside of them that is unique. And if we really are getting in the right mindset, we could shine a great energy out and impact the world, impact each other. And when writing this book, I would connect with people and I would ask them one question. I said, if you had a magic wand and could create anything in your life, what would you want to create? Can you guess what the number one answer was?
Wealth?
It was actually, I don't know.
I don't know. Okay.
I don't know. A lot of people haven't taken the time to step back and say, what if you could create anything in your world, anything in your life, and you could just make that happen? And they haven't just taken the time just to define what that is. And so take the time to find what you really want. What do you really want? If you could create anything and bring it into existence for yourself, for your family, for those who are important to you, what would you want? And then when you define what that is, take the actions to bring it into existence. Because who's in control of your boat? It's you, right? So that's the call to action, is to take time to do that for yourself. We kind of come full circle because I believe it was a similar concept in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when he said, if you could write your eulogy, what would you write? What would you want people to know about yourself? And ultimately, you're in control of your own ship. So take the action that's most important to you.
Awesome. And how can people buy your book, and how can people find you the best way?
Well, if you want to know more about me, Kenny Harper, I am a business growth coach. So I do help businesses increase the number of leads they have, sales, or profitability using effective strategy and proven systems, you can go to kennyharper.rocks. That's kennyharper.rocks. It's not a .com address. It's a .rocks address. Going with the theme of amplify your business.
That's awesome. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for coming on. To our listeners, we'll have a link to, all of Kenny's platforms as well, tagged in the iTunes section and all on our social media platforms. So I want to thank everybody for listening and thank Kenny for coming on our show. I really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back on the show in 6 months or so.
Anthony, thank you so much for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.